Slicing and dicing is taking place right here in the kitchen of Ebony Ivy and Thyme. We're going to make some cinnamon applesauce, as well as use that cinnamon applesauce for a delicious muffin that is going to make your family happy every morning. Welcome, my friends, to the kitchen of Ebony Ivy and Thyme. I'm Leona Dooley, and today in the kitchen, we're going to put together some cinnamon applesauce muffins, and they are delicious. They're going to be moist, and they're going to be that go-to item that you and your family will want for breakfast or even for a snack. And the fun part about this is that if you watched a certain portion of the video earlier, then you know that the applesauce that we're going to be using, I made right here in the kitchen, did it in my Instapot, and all of it came out perfect. So what we're using today has been cooled and it's ready for our cinnamon applesauce muffins. So without further ado, let's get to it because this is a quick and easy recipe. So let's get it done. I'm going to show you two techniques for taking the peels off of the apples. First, we're using a scraper. It's just a regular fruit scraper or peel scraper. You can use it for vegetables as well as for fruit. And it works perfectly for apples. And as you can see, we can move along very quickly, get those peels off. But I'm also going to show you a second technique in just a moment. We've got my apples peeled, and I'm going to place all of the peelings into my little compost bin that I have here. And just keep everything right there so that when I'm ready to blend up my compost, I'll have everything in a nice container. So that includes the stems, and once I core the apples, I'll put the core in there as well. And you know, it's nice having this convenient little compost bin. So I can just keep everything there until the evening. I'm going to rinse these off, get them sliced up, or chunked up anyway. I think I'll slice a few just in case I decide to do an apple pie. So all of these are going into my bin. We're going to continue to slice these apples up and get the cores out, and we're also going to put them into reusable freezer bags because I'm doing this a couple of days in advance. You know, prep is always 50% of what you're doing. So we're prepping these apples, and I'm putting them into bags so that I can decide whether I want to do something major, like in this case, we're going to do the homemade cinnamon applesauce, but I can also decide if I like to keep some of those out and use them for just a simple apple pie. So we're going to continue to work and get this job done. Okay, I'm going to put just a little lemon juice on top and sprinkle it with some sugar. One more. Okay, there's our lemon juice. And let's get a little sugar on it. This is a 3/4 cup. I'm going to do 2. And then we're going to mix it up. put these in a bag or a couple of bags using my reusable bags. Well, you can see I ended up actually putting them into 2 bags rather than that one, because it made the other bag so difficult to close, and I didn't want to squish them too much and bruise them. So I am just going to get these zipped up. And I haven't decided if I'm going to do a small batch of applesauce or whether we're going to do a big batch of applesauce. Either way, applesauce is on tap. Okay. 2. I promised to show you a second technique for slicing these apples and getting them peeled. And so as you can see, I am using a device. This device is called a Cucina Pro Apple Peeler. And basically it just locks down to your counter through suction, and then you'll turn the little crank handle and it moves the apple, the peel comes off, and when you get to the end, guess what? Your apple is already sliced. And so we're just going to work with this because I have another batch of apples and I'm going to get all of those done. And as you can see, I have the freezer apples in the background because today we're going to put that applesauce together. We're going to use the 7-in-1 programmable pressure cooker by Farberware. It operates just like the Instapot, but it's a little less expensive. Keep in mind that most of these apples are frozen, and only the last few batches of apples are actually just regular apples and ready to go at room temperature. But because I'm using some frozen apples, I'm really having to stuff this pot. And it's going to work out just fine. But when you're using this particular Farberware pressure cooker, we're going to need about 1 cup of liquid. As you can see, I have quite a few apples. And so I'm going to add a couple of teaspoons of cinnamon, and this is just cinnamon. And if you like less, you can certainly add less. I'm also going to put in a little bit of apple pie spice because the apple pie spice contains a little bit of cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice. All of that is in here. So we're going to get a little bit of that to add a little extra zing. And then we're going to start to add the sugar. I have a 3/4 cup measurer. So I'm going to add in about 2 cups of sugar. 1. That's 2. And then I'm going to put in about 1/2. Now when this cooks down just a little bit, then I will add more of whatever the seasoning needs. So I'm going to keep the sugar handy. I'm also going to keep the spices handy so that if we have to bump up those spices, once this is finished cooking, then we can certainly do that. Now, before we let this start, I'm going to add in just a little bit of lemon juice because I want these to retain their color. And in fact, I'm thinking I probably need more like a quarter cup, maybe, close to it. Okay, this is about an eighth of a cup of lemon juice that I'm sprinkling in. Okay, so let's put the top on. Let's get it locked in. Okay, there we go. It's locked in and ready to go. I got a little bit ahead of myself when I put the top on because I forgot to add the 1 cup of liquid. And I thought about the fact that so many of these apples are frozen that they're going to have an excess amount of liquid. So I thought I'd add in at least a 1/2 cup of apple juice, which is going to add that nice appley flavor to this applesauce. We're going to do a natural release today, and that means that we're going to let the exhaust valve, the vent, go to the venting position, which it has done. You can see that right now where it's pointing to the lower left. Now look over at the red button. That button is the float valve, and the float valve is down. So that lets you know that the steam has been released and that you can open the top of your pressure cooker. I am purposely leaving my apples chunky. And the reason for that is because my plan is to use this cinnamon applesauce over ice cream, to also use it in our cinnamon apple muffins. And when I need it for the muffins, then I can always blend it up and make it a little smoother. But I like the chunkiness, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it just that way. We're going to place the cinnamon applesauce into jars, nice hot jars, and nice hot and steamy. And you'll also notice that I have quite a bit of liquid that's down in there. So I am going to save that juice. I'm using a slotted spoon, getting the apples into the jars, and all of that liquid is going to be placed into a container, and that container is going to be placed into the freezer. So when I'm baking a pork tenderloin or something like that, I can use my cinnamon applesauce juice and pour it over that pork tenderloin to make a delicious, delicious sauce. I have set up my soup pot with a towel in the bottom, and I've also placed the water in as well as started the water, so it's pretty hot. Hot jars, hot water. So I'm going to get those into the nice hot pot, let them come back to a boil, place the top on it, and time it for 20 minutes. We are working the flavors of fall in the kitchen today. So get yourself comfy and let's get to it. The first thing I'm putting down on the counter is my can opening device that I use for opening cans. I'm going to put this here because if I put it there on my counter and set my bowl on it, then my bowl is not going to slip and slide around. So that's in place. I've got my little KitchenAid mixer here, and to be honest with you, you don't even have to have that, but we're going to use it today because I need for this to go pretty quickly. All right, so we're going to start with our flour. I am adding 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour to this bowl. Then I'm going to place in some baking powder. All right, I need 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And take that little foil part and just measure off the top. That's one teaspoon. And I need 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. Half teaspoon of baking soda. So our baking powder and baking soda, which are the leavening agents, are already in the mix. Okay, next we're going to need about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I'm going to use pink Himalayan. Okay, we need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Sprinkle that in. You notice that it's in a glass jar, and it's actually a glass jelly jar. All right, from there, I need 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Here's our ground cinnamon. Make sure I have the right one. And we're going to add 1 teaspoon. Ground cinnamon. Now, if you wanted some of the other fall flavors, you could certainly do that. But since I know that I added a little bit of some of those flavors into my homemade applesauce, I'm not going to do that yet. Okay, now, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. Let me get the nutmeg. Okay, I have our nutmeg. I'm going to get about a 1/4 teaspoon and sprinkle that in. Had just a little more than I needed. There's our nutmeg. I also need a little bit of unsalted butter, but I'm going to do that in a separate bowl. So these are the dry ingredients. So what I'm going to do first is to just take my mixer on low, and I'm going to make sure that everything in here is well mixed. Now, what you do not want is a mouthful of either the baking powder or the baking soda or any of those seasonings just by themselves. So we're making sure that everything is well mixed. Like I said, we could do this by hand, but I'm using the mixer this morning. Okay, so those are our dry ingredients. I'm going to set those off to the side and get a small container for the wet ingredients. Now, we're going to add a 1/4 cup, which is a 1/2 stick of butter, into this bowl. And it has been softened. Then we're going to start to add in the rest of the ingredients. I softened our butter in the microwave for about 10 seconds because I didn't leave it out last night. So There's our butter, ready to go soften, but you notice it's softened but not melted. And I'm going to hold on to my wrapper because I may use that later on. Okay, got my dish rag and wipe my fingers off. And the counter, of course. All right, next, we're going to need some granulated sugar. And we need exactly a half cup of granulated sugar. And I'm going to use my 4th cup measure. So, just so you know, I'm going to use, this is a 4th cup that I'm going to use. So I'm going to put in 2 of these. Here's 1. And 2. That's our granulated sugar. I also need an equal amount of brown sugar. So I'm going to add a half cup of brown sugar. Make sure everything's nice and soft so it'll be easy to scoop out. Using my 4th cup measure here. Okay. Pressing as I go. There's 1. And a half cup of brown sugar. Here's the second one, 2. There we go. That's done. Those are out of the way. So the 2 sugars have been taken care of. Got the granulated sugar, the brown sugar, the butter. We're going to need 2 large eggs and then some vanilla extract. Now, before I put the eggs in, I'm going to go ahead and use our mixer and just kind of whip this up, starting on low. Notice how nicely that bowl stays in place. Now, I've placed one of these mats that you use to open your jars with. I've placed one of those in my description box. They are inexpensive and so handy to have around the kitchen. But I just love how it holds my bowl in place. Okay, now we're going to add the eggs one at a time. I'm actually going to put them in this cup because I want to make sure that I check them before I add them to my mix. Okay, so the first egg, and I'm going to add it while it's beating. Egg 1, going to beat well in between. Notice how that changes very quickly. Now today I'm using white lily flour, and rather than any type of bread or cake flour. And so it may be, because white lily to me seems just a little bit drier than some other flours. And so what I will probably do is to add just a tad bit more than what the recipe calls for of the applesauce, just to make sure that our muffins stay nice and moist. So this is egg 2. And we're going to whip this real good. This part nice and fluffy, so take the time to whip them well. go. All right, now we're going to slowly but surely, we're going to add this to our dry ingredients. And I'm going to do that by making a well in the center. And I'm just going to use my hand, make a well right there. Get a spatula. And we're going to add our wet ingredients into the middle. Now I could have done it the opposite way, done the wet ingredients and added the dry to the wet. We can do it either way. This is a very simple muffin, and you know, you can adapt it so many different ways. It's what you decide to add in it. You can add seeds, you can add raisins. Today we're going to kick it up just a notch, and we're going to add a couple of things that you may choose not to put in yours. You may choose to keep yours quite simple, but that part is up to you. Now I'm going to clean this off. There we go. I'm just going to sit that there. And I don't want to overbeat it. So that's why I'm not turning it up high. Everything moist. And then we'll start to add in our applesauce. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to add in our vanilla, and I use the cap. I'm going to put in 1 and about 2 capfuls of vanilla, just because it gives it a good flavor, and I like Watkins. And we're going to add about, notice I said about, a cupful of our applesauce. Now I'm going to give my applesauce a stir. Oh, it smells so good. So I have a 1 cup measure. And I'm not going to worry about leveling the top off, because knowing that this flour is a little bit drier than some of the other flours that I use, I'll probably need the juice. So there's our 1 cup of applesauce. Keeping my blender on low, I'm going to add this to the mix. Oh yeah. Now that's it. It's ready. Now what I'm going to do at this at this point is that I'm going to add a few little extras. I want to start with a handful of dates, and I like dates and apples. Ooh, the applesauce is so good. So I'm going to take a handful of dates. I'm going to sprinkle those in. I'm also going to add some sunflower seeds, because I like the little bite of the sunflower seed. I purchased both of these at Aldi's. Very reasonable. So I'm going to put in a sprinkle of sunflower seeds. I may do one more. Okay. just to give you a little crunch. And if you like nuts, this would be a good time to add in either some pecans or some walnuts, whichever you enjoy. Now the hubby likes pecans, so I'm going to add in at least a handful of chopped pecans, just because he likes the nuts. Okay, so that was about a quarter to a half of a cup of pecans, and just a handful of the others. I'm going to do one more turn with the mixer, and then we're going to be ready to load our muffin cups. All right, that's ready. That's going to be delicious. Now, I found the cutest thing. Let me share it with you. When I went into Dollar Tree the other day, I found these. Look at these little muffin cups. One says, "Give thanks." And the other is just a cute little cup with lots of pretty daisies. So we're going to be using these for our muffins. They're already in the pan, and all we have to do is load them. I'm going to try my best to keep these pretty clean. So I have a spoon, and I'm going to take a scoop. I'm not exactly sure how much each of these little cups is going to hold. So we're going to kind of scrape them off on the side and be very careful as we load it. And because I want a little top on it, I'm going to fill these probably 3/4 of the way. There we go. So that took about a scoop and a half. Now we're going to add a crumb topping to these, which is going to make it absolutely delicious. That part you don't have to do, but it's quick and easy, and it just adds not only a special taste, but they look so pretty. If you wanted to have these at a ladies' breakfast or fix them for a men's breakfast at church and send your hubby out with them to share with the fellas, that would be a great thing that you might want to do. As you know, they're going to love it just because it came from your kitchen. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to start baking these. They're supposed to bake in about 25 to 35 minutes in a 350 oven. And I'm going to get them started, make the crumb topping, then pull them out and add the crumb topping because I don't want the crumb topping to get too brown. Okay, so we still have a little bit here to do a few more. And I'm just going to clean this up just a little bit. I did pretty good not spilling. So we'll finish the cleaning, and this is going to go into our 350 oven. And like I said, I'm going to let these stay in for about 15 minutes and then take them out and put the crumb topping on top. Okay, and I have another muffin tin full, and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to need all of these, so I'm just going to do a few. All right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to prepare the crumb topping, and this is what we're going to need. We need a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. We need about a 1/4 cup of oats, just depends on how crumbly you want it. We're going to need a 1/4 teaspoon of either ground cinnamon or ground apple pie spice, whichever you like. And we're going to need about 2 tablespoons of butter, and this can be certainly melted if you want to melt it, or you can even do it softened, either way. So let's get that put together. I have about 4 minutes until time to put our crumb topping on, so we're pushing it a little close, but that's okay. So I have my butter that I've well softened. I'm going to add in my 1/4 cup of flour. Let me get that. Okay, we got our 1/4 cup of flour. I I have some more butter off to the side just in case I need to add that. I also need a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. We're going to add that. We're going to put in our 1/4 cup of oats. Notice I'm using the same measuring cup. 1/4 cup of oats and about a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and I'm using my apple pie spice. So that was okay, we're good. I'm just going to sprinkle it in about a 1/4. Okay, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, and 2 tablespoons of butter. So we're going to get all this mixed up well. Put all of this together. Now, as you're pressing down, I'm using a fork and pressing the ingredients together. That's how you know whether or not you need a little extra butter. The muffins are baking for about 15 minutes. And at the end of 15 minutes, we're going to add this crumb topping. And then I'll let it finish the baking. Now, you know, to test them to make sure that they're done, you will need some type of skewer or toothpick that you can poke into the muffin. And if it comes out clean, it's ready. I thought I had my camera on when I added the crumb topping. I guess I didn't. How about that? I'm going to show you what they look like now that I've added the crumb topping. I didn't realize that I had not turned on my camera. So there we go. They're ready. They're baking. They've got about 15 more minutes. While I'm waiting for those muffins to come out, I poured myself a good cup of coffee. And this is nothing special. It's just my morning coffee with a little bit of cream and a little bit, teeny tiny bit of sweetener. And sometimes I don't even use that. But I also have the rest of the leftover applesauce that was in that container. I've taken that out and it's chilled, and it is so good. Now let me tell you, if you don't like your applesauce very sweet, when I put the recipe in, you can certainly cut back on the amount of sugar. If you're not a big fan of cinnamon, you can certainly cut back a little bit on the cinnamon, but don't go too far. And remember, the amount of cinnamon that you put in is going to determine how deep and cinnamony color that your applesauce is going to be. But this is amazing with oatmeal when you have it in the morning. Put a couple of spoonfuls of this over your vanilla ice cream for a dessert. Yummy. It is so good, and definitely good right here with my nice hot coffee. Let me check those muffins. I've taken out a chopped stick that I'm going to use, and I'm just going to put it in the muffins and make sure that they're done. Now, if they come out this comes out pretty clean, I know the center's ready. Everybody's ready. Everybody's out of the oven. Let me turn the oven off. This is fun. I'm going to get them out of the pan, get them on the rack, let you see them, and then we've got to taste one. And you can definitely see how some of them ran over. He's not pretty, but I guarantee these that ran over are probably going to be the best tasting ones. This one was perfect. with his little give thanks. So I know to be not quite so generous when I put these into the muffin tin. But this was the first time I used those cute little muffin cups, and they are perfect. So I'm going to let these cool on the rack. But the one that we're going to share together is going to be hot. Let's do that. Now, good hot coffee. Our delicious applesauce. And these wonderful muffins. And I'm not sure how I want to go about this. I think what you'd have to do is to just kind of tear the wrapping off. You know, you will have gotten past the how cute it is, and then it's going to be all about let's just eat it. So I'm getting our muffin ready for eating. I'm taking off his little lip that he had. It's a little messy with the crumb topping, but that's okay. Oh, that's good. I'm going to finish up my breakfast, and I hope that you're having an amazing day, because mine has certainly been off to a good start because I was with you. So enjoy yourself, do something fun for the family. As you can see, quick and easy is right around the corner. And you know, I've showed you how to make the homemade applesauce. But guys, if you want to whip up a batch of these little muffins, you can go to the store and buy some cinnamon applesauce and make it if you don't have time to do it from scratch. And if you happen to go to an apple orchard, grab a ton so you can come back and fix some of this small batch applesauce. Have fun.